It's a great pleasure for me to be back in Senegal. The last time was approximately 8.5 years ago, and we had an Afrofoods meeting in this very city. So next slide. There are
just up and down the arrow.
Yes, I'm looking for the up.
Can I help you?
No,
Enter or enter.
Enter.
okay. So many things are happening at the international level related to food composition.
Il y a beaucoup de choses qui se passent au niveau international en relation avec la composition des aliments.
And I will talk about 4. I'll tell you about the Bangkok Declaration, the relationship between food composition and food trade, the relationship between food composition and food biodiversity,
Allez-y, go ahead.
and a little bit about the concept of sustainable diets as it relates to food composition.
Donc, la déclaration de Bangkok, donc la relation entre la composition des aliments et le commerce international, et la biodiversité et les régimes alimentaires durables. Ouais. Donc la déclaration de Bangkok.
At the 8th International Food Data Conference, which was held in October this year, the delegates proposed a declaration that was adopted by the conference.
Donc, durant la réunion, la 8e réunion internationale sur les tables de composition qui s'est tenue à Bangkok en octobre 2000, les participants ont adopté la déclaration suivante.
And it is a declaration not for something that FAO should do, not for something that your governments should do, but it's something for us as food composition scientists to do. And everyone has a copy of the declaration in the folder that Sheikh and his team has passed out. But the important emphasis is that we are responsible for promoting the importance of food composition in the many diverse sectors that have an interest, that have a stake in food composition activities. And we are responsible to undertake the advocacy in policies and program development in our own organizations and bring it to the rest of the scientific community in agriculture, in health, and in the environment sector, and as it relates to food trade.
Donc, brièvement, c'est une déclaration qui se trouve en annexe dans votre portfolio et elle résume assez bien effectivement les besoins d'avoir des données de qualité dans tous les secteurs de la santé, de l'agriculture et de l'environnement et du commerce international. Ils sont arrivés d'accord aussi à la promotion de la science des aliments, des sciences des aliments dans différents forats, y compris national, régional et international. Et il n'appartient à aucun pays de entreprendre des séances de sensibilisation dans le contexte des politiques et des programmes de développement. Assurer l'intégration de la composition des principes de composition des aliments dans les différentes activités et enfin trouver tous les moyens pour continuer le développement, la maintenance et la mise à jour des bases de données dans le cadre d'infrastructures durables.
And the important consideration for this group is also that sustainable infrastructures. And one of the problems that we have had in Afrofoods in the countries, in the sub-regions, is that food composition has not been part of the mandate of organizations doing this work. It's not sustainable in that way. So in many cases, in many parts of the world, an organization is responsible for food composition activities, whether they do anything about it or not. And in some of those same countries, groups, people, individuals, organizations not responsible for food composition are doing those activities. So we need to make something sustainable in the countries and in the regions for food composition.
Donc la pérennisation dépend essentiellement effectivement des infrastructures. Et les infrastructures qui existent la plupart du temps n'ont toujours pas de mandat de s'occuper uniquement que effectivement des tables de composition.
Okay.
Next one.
Okay, food trade is important. It is one of the more compelling reasons for doing food composition work in many countries. And it is one of the ways to make food composition activities sustainable in a country, to link it to food trade.
Donc le commerce international est très important et on doit tout faire effectivement pour assurer l'interface composition des aliments et le commerce international.
Because in many countries it is mandated by legislation to have food labeling, to have something related to nutrition claims. Food safety is also a food composition issue, food control. The laboratory infrastructures are similar, if not identical. Taxation often relates to food composition issues. For example, in some countries like the UK, butter fat is taxed. The fat content of butter or the fat content of dairy products is a taxation issue. Therefore, it's important to know the fat content, among other things. And these are important consumer issues, food composition.
Donc, selon les institutions de régulation, l'étiquetage alimentaire, la nutrition, la sécurité sanitaire, le contrôle des aliments, la taxation et les associations de consommateurs deviennent des besoins assez importants dans le domaine des activités à prendre en compte dans le domaine de la composition des aliments.
Okay. So WTO has said some things about food composition. The World Trade Organization has a couple of agreements that relate directly to our activities. They include the Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement. All countries represented in this room are signatories to this agreement. And the TBT calls on countries to use relevant international standards when they exist. Not just for food, but including food. And then the agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the SPS agreement, specifically mentions food composition and under the Codex Alimentarius Commission. So it calls on countries to harmonize their national standards with international standards, guidelines, and recommendations, and that measures must be based on scientific principles and sufficient scientific evidence, and then key, Codex standards are defined as international standards, guidelines, or recommendations for food safety. And food composition is also a food safety issue. And for this reason, Codex has become the single most important international reference point for developments associated with food standards, including food composition.
Donc, dans le domaine du commerce international, les accords TBT, qui demandent aux différents pays d'utiliser les normes internationales quand elles existent. Dans le domaine, effectivement, SPS, dans les accords SPS, ils appellent aussi les pays à harmoniser leurs normes nationales avec les normes internationales, les directives et recommandations. Article 3.1. Les mesures SPS aussi doivent être fondées sur des principes scientifiques et suffisamment scientifiquement prouvés. Ensuite, les normes du Codex sont définies comme des normes internationales, des directives et des recommandations pour la sécurité sanitaire des aliments. Le Codex a été l'organisme international de référence pour tous les développements associés avec les normes alimentaires.
So in case you didn't know, Codex Alimentarius Commission was created a long time ago. It is a joint FAO and WHO project or infrastructure to develop food standards and guidelines for the whole world. Next slide.